Dear Wyanites, I am Learning Ambassador Oscar Ng.
And I'm Learning Ambassador Clinton Lau.
As the mid-year examination is approaching, many of you may have started your revision. Now, recall the most recent instance when you revised a particular subject. Are you confident what you did was the single most efficient and effective method to achieve the same result? If not, this video is exactly what you need.
In this video, we will not only cover revision procedures and techniques backed up by science, but also learning strategies before and during class to boost your academic scores to new heights.
Without further ado, let's dive into the main content. When it comes to learning something new, what is the first venue that comes to your mind? I bet your answer is probably a classroom. But did you know that a majority of top scorers acquire new academic knowledge outside the classroom before the teacher covers the chapter? This is precisely why those high-achieving classmates almost always seem to be intelligent in class, because they have previewed the textbook content beforehand. You may wonder, how does previewing actually help you? Without question, you familiarize yourself with the content so that you can keep up with ease in lessons. Besides, you get to know the previous knowledge that you would like to revisit before you dive into that new chapter. What's often overlooked is the opportunity to identify loopholes that obstruct your understanding and questions that occur to you in advance. Self-directed learning is the key. Now that we're done with the benefits of learning before teaching, let's move on to what you should do as a complete newcomer to a topic. So, here's an imaginary scenario. 4 students previewed the same topic, but in distinct ways. Student A flipped through the 20 textbook pages within 2 minutes. Student B read the 20 textbook pages word by word like a super curricular book in around 10 minutes. Student C read and analyzed the 20 textbook pages mindfully and asked himself questions as he went through the content in approximately 30 minutes. Finally, Student D read the pages thoroughly and then attempts to memorize the concepts and theory. It took him about 2 hours. Which student's approach is the most ideal with reference to the discussed advantages of previewing? The answer is student C. That approach maximizes the assets of self-directed learning, particularly helpful in building a network of related concepts and, as mentioned earlier, recognizing the questions you might want to ask during lesson time. Ironically, you don't just view the content when previewing, but try to understand the ideas on your own. Oh well, after previewing, you currently have a smattering of the topic, but it's still kind of fresh to you. The next day, you attend the anticipated lesson with the highest level of confidence ever before, knowing that you have already studied the chapter previously. But wait! Before you get scolded by your subject teacher for napping in class, I must clarify that learning in class remains a crucial step towards mastering a topic. Follow the teacher's train of thought closely and ask 2 types of questions. Those you have already thought about when previewing and any new ones that trigger your curiosity. It's important that you only ask academic-related questions. When the teacher talks about exam skills, the last thing you want is to fool around, make stupid jokes, and end up missing what everyone else has written down. Speaking of writing down what the teacher says, note-taking is a matter we must discuss. Blindly copying everything on the PowerPoint is not advisable since it's often unrealistic, given that teachers tend to cover over 30 slides in a period. Plus, there is a great chance your teacher would share the PowerPoint with students via various platforms upon request. It would often be wiser to only record question answering techniques, responses to questions raised by either you or other classmates, and the new insights and connections inspired by the teacher. Note that all these are not explicitly covered in the textbook. In fact, losing track of the teacher's train of thought is a much bigger deal than not having a handwritten copy of the slides. Abbreviations such as e.g. instead of for example and i.e. instead of that is can save a lot of time. Also utilize symbols like ampersand to mean and, a slash to mean or, and arrows to represent increase if they point upwards and decrease if they point downwards. You can even get creative and invent your own symbol. My personal favorite is the tilde, that curvy dash you use to notate similar triangles in maths. I frequently use it to denote two similar concepts. A few days later, the final lesson on this topic ended. As your teacher dismisses the class, you told yourself that you learned something new and are becoming more and more acquainted with the chapter. That's some pleasant progress indeed. Are you prepared to take a test straight away, though? There is still a long way to go. Now comes revision. It can be divided into two correlated parts, memorization and practice. Why cover two seemingly distinct concepts in one section? It's because they go hand in hand and unlock their full potential when carried out simultaneously. Picture a world where students learn about building Lego models. The teacher teaches them the basic principles and steps in class. An exam is announced to the students as well, where they would be asked to construct a Lego model of a specific object using everything they bring to the exam venue within a predetermined time limit. It turns out that the object to be built for the exam is a pharmacy. Some students have bought larger sets of Lego pieces beforehand. Some have purchased smaller ones, and some enter the examination venue empty-handed and automatically score 0. Some students practice constructing 10 different building models at home, so now they know they should build a structure with a similar layout to a convenience store, comparable function to a hospital, and color choices resembling a barber shop. Those who only practiced 3 different buildings don't know nearly as much, while those who didn't do any practice struggle to decide where to start. This demonstrates why memorizing key sequences and concepts, along with doing practice questions, are pivotal to improving your grades. Memorization provides the context and foundation for practice, and practice consolidates the memory by applying the knowledge absorbed. Now that we fully understand why it is crucial to carry out memorization and practice together, let's proceed to how these should be executed.
Thank you, Oscar. I trust that everyone listening to this video can understand why memorization is so important in learning and revising for an exam. For instance, here are some methods that can aid you during your revising. First, the Feynman technique. The Feynman technique is a 4-step study method created by the Nobel Prize-winning scientist Richard Feynman to help you understand and explain complex topics simply. This process starts by choosing a topic you want to study, and after learning it yourself, you try to explain it to someone else or even a non-living object could work. During this process, if you find difficulties or do not know how to explain certain key points, these are the points where you're not clear about, and gaps in your knowledge. Meanwhile, trying to simplify your explanations so that you can memorize them more efficiently. After all, you can revisit these topics and keep repeating the method over and over again until you can fluently teach someone about a certain topic. Until then, you are well prepared for a certain topic. Another method that I suggest is to do problems. You may ask, why can't I just read the book multiple times? Actually, there's a term for this situation: passive recall and active recall, where passive recall is basically just reading what the book tells you or what the teacher tells you. Although passive recall will still work, the efficiency of it is less than active recall, and we tend to forget knowledge more quicker. Active recall requires the brain to think and recall about the knowledge that you have learned and express it with your own words. Scientifically, active recall is proven to be more effective than passive recall, especially for multiple choice questions. These questions are to check whether you clearly understand a concept, as multiple choice questions are usually based on making decisions rather than testing your answering skills. These questions are often challenging you whether or not you truly understand a concept. Take for example, let's look at a DSE Biology MC question from 2017. It is clear that the question is testing us about the knowledge and concepts of the human circulatory system. Let's look at how these different choices state. A states that veins have larger lumens due to the blood pressure in them are lower. We can see that although both statements, veins have larger lumens, the blood pressure is low, are true. However, this challenges our understanding of whether we truly understand the whole concept behind. Veins have larger lumens to reduce the resistance of blood flow, not due to the low pressure. So it's wrong. For B, it states that arteries have a thick layer of elastic tissue because they have a smaller lumen. Again, both of these facts are correct, but the reason behind the thick layer of elastic tissue is to withstand high blood pressure due to the pumping action of the heart, so it's not correct. C, it states that the aorta has the highest blood pressure because it supplies the blood to the whole body. Both are true, but the reason behind the high blood pressure is because the aorta is directly connected to the heart and is the first place where the blood goes due to the pumping action of the heart, not due to the fact that it supplies blood to the whole body. Finally, for D, the capillary network is a suitable site for material exchange because capillaries have the thinnest walls. The reason and both statements are correct, hence this is the correct answer. This multiple choice is a great demonstration of how it challenges whether there are gaps or flaws about our understandings and concepts of a chapter. After memorizing, it will be the time for practicing for the exam. I highly suggest that you could try doing practice problems, especially long questions. These questions not only require active recalling, but also answering skills and techniques. Through these, your aim is to keep track of what you have missed, got wrong, and learn from them. Here is another example from the DSE Biology 2017. The question asks us to describe the breathing action that brings air into the lungs. Let's look at the marking scheme. It is quite long and not that easy to memorize when you have so many other things to memorize. One technique is to construct a flow chart. For this question, when intercostal muscles contract, then upward and outward movement of the ribcage is caused. When the diaphragm contracts, its shape is flattened. These two actions cause the volume of the thoracic cavity to increase. Then the pressure in the lungs is smaller than atmospheric pressure, ultimately causing the air being forced out. We can see that each point is connected with one another. Remembering one point can guide you to another point, which eases the memorizing process. Here is another example of me revising biology, and only scored 1 out of 4 marks in the long question. The first thing I will do is to analyze what I've forgotten and what concepts have I gotten wrong. Second is to see whether there are important content points or keywords required in answering the question. For here, we can see that there is a specific keyword is needed to follow after the word enzyme, which is the word catalyze. Using another word will not be acceptable. Third, which is the most important, many people often make the mistake of memorizing marking schemes to each question, but rather learning them. By reading different marking schemes, you should try to predict what content points correspond to each point. and learn from different questions about this.
Last but certainly not least, I'll talk about some personal experiences. For me personally, I am extremely sensitive to sudden changes in my surroundings. A few of my classmates have the ability to magically shield their brains from any disturbances and remain highly concentrated in a noisy room, though most secondary students do not possess this ability. If you belong to this group of individuals prone to inconducive environmental conditions, visiting the library with revision partners might help. Regardless of whether libraries are located on or off our campus, all of them provide a quiet ambience, perfect for studying. Revision partners are helpful since you can exchange ideas and discoveries with them. As for revision at home, it is strongly recommended to designate an area or room for academic studies and academic studies alone. As time progresses, you will develop a built-in mechanism. Whenever you enter the revision zone, you would inadvertently switch off the leisure mode and turn on the studying mode. Last but not least, don't forget to put potential distractions as far away as possible. Perhaps the object that would divert your attention is your mobile phone, a fiction book, your Apple Watch, or none of the above. In any case, simply identify the temptations that pull you away from academic success and eradicate them before every studying session. After all that in-depth discussion on learning strategies, I would like to end this video by introducing an interesting observation among my fellow classmates. Those who plan their revision regularly often perform better in assessments, especially when it comes to weeks with densely packed tests. That said, the cycles of setting study goals differ greatly. Some do it on a daily basis, others do it once a week, and one even divides the list into goals for weekdays and the weekend. What's more, the definition of study goals is subject to interpretation as well. A portion of them set time-specific goals, while the rest prefer task-specific ones. The former would tell themselves to do maths for 2 hours, while the latter would complete 20 MCs and 10 long questions instead. The point is, learning habits vary from person to person. Therefore, there's no universal algorithm that can suit everyone's unique strengths and weaknesses. It just doesn't exist. What this video covered are simply general principles to follow when you learn or revise. The exact implementation methods that best fit your style remain for you to explore. For years to come, I hope Wyanites can fully embody the spirit of this quote by Indian activist Mahatma Gandhi. Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever. Thank you.